All right, so today I'm talking about Vercel and how we can host websites with Vercel and also with GitHub. So there's going to be a few other technologies thrown in just for fun, but the main focus of this is how you can host websites and how you can do it using Vercel and GitHub. All right, so I'm going to create 3 repositories. I'm going to do 3 quick small projects. So I'm going to create 3 repos for these things. So first one, we're going to create let's call it Vercel GH Pages. Okay, so this is just going to be a public repo. I'm going to create that one. There we go. And then we're going to create a second one. And this one we'll call Vercel Express. So we're going to use Node.js and Express with Vercel and GitHub, tying it together. And we'll do one more. Open it up in a new tab as well. And this one we're going to do Vercel and Vite. Okay, so those have been created. So we have these 3 projects, and we'll do the Express one last. So we're going to do one with it, which is a basic website. So just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, nothing much to it. And we're going to look at how to host just with GitHub Pages. So we'll go through that one quickly. And then we'll look at also taking that one and having it on not just GitHub Pages, but also on Vercel. All right, so let's jump into the project. I have 3 projects here. These are the ones that are going to be connected to GitHub. These 3 projects, if you look down in the description, you'll see the links to all 3 of the repos. So you'll be able to clone a copy of those and use it as you wish. First one. GitHub Pages. So I've got my basic website here. There's not much to it. If I open this up in the browser with live server, there we go. That's it. That's the whole thing. You know, header, a little bit of content. Look in the browser, you can check out the CSS in the console. I have this one message being written out. So that's it. That's the whole site. There's nothing special, nothing amazing about that. We want to connect it to this repo. We're going to put it inside of here. So I'm going to copy this URL right here. And we need to do git init, turns it into a Git repository locally. Then here, I'll zoom in a little bit on that. And once we've got it initialized, then I'm going to add all my files. Now, typically you do this at the start of the project and then continue to do commits as you write the code. But because it's so small and simple, I've just put it all together to save us a little bit of time. So we've got a commit message, and this is the Vercel GH Pages complete. We're done. And now to connect it from our local computer to GitHub, we have to add the remote. So git remote, add, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it origin. This is just the name that we're going to use to refer to this URL. So I just pasted it in there. There we go. Now I can git push to the URL called origin, and the branch is main. That's the branch that I'm in right now. There we go. Done. And we refresh this repo right here. There we go. So on GitHub, we have the whole thing uploaded. Now, GitHub Pages. If you go into the settings for your repo, you won't be able to get to it on mine, but if you clone a copy and push it up to GitHub, you'll be able to get to the settings. And inside of here, there's a tab called Pages. And we're going to say deploy from a branch. Well, we're going to be on the main branch right here. This is the one that we want. So everything that's inside the main branch from the root folder, that is our website. So we say save. It's done. So the GH Pages source is saved. That's done. Now, the one thing about this with GitHub Pages, you've got static content. So you've got HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Anything that's static, if you're building a static product website, something like that, you can use GitHub Pages and it works fantastic. And it's easy to figure out what the URL is going to be as the developer anyway. So if I paste this inside of here, now if you take your username, remove that, change github.com to github.io, and you put your username as the subdomain. So username.github.io / the repository name, that is your website. So there it is. So you have a URL, it's public, you can share it with everyone and anyone, and it's great for static content. But it doesn't give you server-side programming, so it doesn't run Node.js or PHP or Ruby or things like that. You don't connect to a database on it. It's great for static content like this. So there's a few things that you can do that are dynamic, but basically think of GitHub Pages as your static website. It's a place for free that you can put it up there. Okay, so we have that as one option. Now, Vercel can also do static websites. It can do a lot more, and we're going to just get into some of the cool stuff that we can do, just sort of scratch the surface of all the features that it's got, but we can turn this website right here that we've built into something on Vercel as well. So on Vercel, you can log into here, create an account. So I'm just in my dashboard on here. This is my projects dashboard right here, the overview. When you log into this, you can log in using your GitHub credentials. Quite simple, just say, oh yeah, I'm going to use my GitHub credentials to log in, and there you go. Now, I want to, from my dashboard, add a new project. There we go. Now, the first time you do this, again, it's going to say, hey, do you want to let Vercel access your projects on GitHub? Yes, you can either say let it access everything, or you can say one by one, only one project at a time, only one repository at a time. So here's the one right here that we just updated 3 minutes ago, Vercel GH Pages. I'm going to import that. Now, I can change the name of the project here. That project name is going to be used as part of the URL. I'm just going to leave it at that. Simple enough. Now, there's some other things that we can do inside of here that aren't really going to have any bearing on a static website. Like there's build and output settings. This is important when you start using packages like Next.js or React, Svelte, even Express. You know, you can change things, the output directory, the install commands. We're not doing any of that. We're just taking the default name and environment variables. Again, for some things, if you want to have server side, you've got an API key that you need to use in your code, you can store it right here. So this is how you can add environment variables, and we will come back and do that in one of the other projects. This framework preset that I skipped over, this is where you could say, hey, you know, I'm building a Next.js project, and you can set that. Now, you don't actually ever really need to select anything from here. And that's because Vercel does such a great job at auto-detecting what your project is. It looks at the repository, and from that, based on the files that it's got, it goes, oh, okay, you've got a Next project, or you've got a Svelte project. It figures those things out and does the appropriate build commands. So all I really did was connect, clicking the button on that GitHub Pages or the GitHub repo, and I'm going to say deploy. So I click on the deploy button. It is now copying those files. So here we go. It's starting to do the deployment. It's copying those files from the GitHub repo over onto the Vercel servers. And there we go. So we have done this. So this dashboard is the dashboard for this project. If I click on that, here we go. So the production deployment, we've got deployment. So this URL works. This is the URL for this specific version of the code. So it's a much longer, more complex, a unique URL. This one is the public one. This is the one that you would share with everyone. So if I click on that, there it is. Same as the local one, same as the GitHub Pages one. It's just hosted here. And this arguably is a much simpler URL. There's no folder or anything. And that can make writing your relative URLs for where files are stored, where your images are, your styles are, your fonts are, things like that can be much easier to write if you have just this domain. You're right at the root of the domain, so you don't have to worry about the repo folder like you do with GitHub Pages. So over here, notice we have this extra folder. It can sometimes complicate paths inside your code. So for that reason, even though it's static, I do tend to prefer using Vercel over GitHub Pages. Not that GitHub Pages isn't great and I haven't used it for years and years, but just for the URL sake, static websites work really well over here too. Okay, so we have now this one complete, done, out of the way. All right, now let's move on to using Vite. Now this one, Vite, isn't a focus of what we're doing right here, but I'm going to use this to create a project. It is it's a build tool that lets you create projects. So React, Svelte, and so on. You can create those. You can also create vanilla JavaScript projects. So let's do that one. Let's come over here, and I'm going to hide this one down here, and we're going to go into the Vite one. So I've got absolutely nothing in here right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run the command. So we're going to say npm install, sorry, not install, but npm create Vite at latest. And then the name of the app, well, I'm just going to use a period to say that it's this current folder that I'm in right now. This is the one it's going to be my project folder. So it's going to prompt me now to say, okay, we can do this. Yeah, remove existing files and continue. Yeah, I had some stuff in here before. Let's do that, sure. Now, this is what I was saying before about what kind of project do you want. So React, Preact, Svelte. We just want a vanilla JavaScript one. So I'm going to hit enter on that, and it's going to be JavaScript. There we go. It has scaffolded the project for me, and it tells you what you need to do next. So npm install, or just npm I is the shortcut for that. It reads the package.json and says, oh, hey, we need to have Vite installed as a dev dependency. So node modules gets created, that gets added in here. It gives us these commands, these scripts that we can run. So that was the first one here, npm run dev. And if we do that, it is going to compile this, and we have now a working website. So I will command click on here to open it in the browser. There we go. This is the website, and it's even got a little bit of functionality. You can click on this button to increment through the counter. Now, all those different kinds of projects that Vite gave you, React, Svelte, and so on, they all do the same example, just with the different frameworks. So we have that, and I'm going to Control-C to shut that down. Now we have this project. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to turn this into a Git repository. We're going to push it up onto GitHub and then connect it to, or actually, no, this one we're not going to push up to GitHub. We'll turn it into a GitHub repo. I will push it up to GitHub so that you have a copy of it, but we're not going to connect it in the same way. We're going to use the Vercel command line right here in our computer to push it up there. So we'll say git init and git add all, git commit, and this is the Vercel Vite project complete. Okay, so I've committed this, and I am going to come over here into my Vercel Vite project, copy this, add the remote. So git remote add origin this. Now I can push at this point, but I don't have to do it yet. I'm going to do it afterwards so that you have a copy of it. But for right now, it's just doing the git commit so that we've saved the code for our project. Now that that is done, now that we've got the project written, we've saved all this, what we're going to do is we want to use Vercel's command line program to be able to push things up to Vercel. So npm install globally Vercel. So we're installing Vercel on our computer so that we have access to that command. And the first thing that we need to do after we've installed it is log in. So Vercel, log in. And how do you want to log in? Well, my account on Vercel, I logged in with GitHub, so that's what I'm going to do here. So you can use the arrow keys and then enter to select it. I'm logging in. There we go. I've logged in with my GitHub credentials on Vercel. So I can close this. I'm done with that now. I still haven't pushed anything up to here. We can refresh. Still nothing on here yet. And that's fine. I have connected to Vercel. So this project right now, if I do this, if I say Vercel dev, this lets me create a copy of the project and run it locally. So I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do that right now. But Vercel dev lets you basically mimic the Vercel environment locally so you can test and experiment and play around with your code. If you want to push your code up to the Vercel website, back over here, let's go to the Vercel website. So here's our GH pages that we were on. We're going to now, we can go in here to choose different projects. We can click on our projects folder to get to our dashboard. We can see, okay, there's the GH pages. There's the other ones that I had before, but I don't have the new one here yet. But if I just do the command Vercel and hit enter, set up and deploy, yes, I want to do that. Which scope do I want to do it to? Well, I only have the one scope. It's my projects. So enter again, link to an existing project. No, it's going to be a brand new project on Vercel that I'm creating. Project name. Yeah, we're going to use the same one as our folder right here, Vercel Vite. So we'll hit enter. In which directory is your code located? Yeah, it's the default one, the current folder. Setting it up. Do I want to modify the settings? Those were the ones that you can modify inside of the dashboard on Vercel. I'm not going to modify any of those right now. So we're deploying to Vercel. So basically, we're taking this whole project. You'll notice that there's a .vercel folder now. And all this project, not the node modules, but all the rest of this is being pushed up to Vercel. So on here, if I refresh this dashboard, there we are. This is the new one that we just created. And you'll notice it's highlighted here, connect Git repository. So we have not connected to Git. We have just directly pushed the code from our computer up to here. And I'm going to click on this one. Here we go. And there's the preview. So same thing as we were doing before. So here is the main URL. And it's got a unique little string put inside of here. So somebody else used this same name. So they just append this automatically for us. So there's a deployment URL for this specific deployment. And then this one, same as what we had locally. Right here, click on the button, we can increment the counter. So we have a local project. And inside of here, so if we go to deployments, I've only pushed once up to here. So the first time you do Vercel, you're pushing it up there. Now you can also do, there's another command, Vercel --prod. So it's pushing it and saying, yeah, this is the production build of what we've got. So it's building, pushing it up. It's going through the process here. And if I go up in here, you'll see, hey, yeah, there it is. It pushed up the new version of my code from my computer, and now it's ready. So the deployments tab is going to give you this long list every time you push a new version of your code, whether you're getting it from GitHub or you're pushing it up from the command line locally, you're getting a new version of each one of these. And each one of these deployments, if we click on that, go into it here, this URL right here is the URL for that particular version. So if you had a client and you wanted to share a specific deployment version of the code, you can give them this URL. But this is the one, this is the production version, this is the one that's done, this is the one that you want everybody to see. There it is. Okay, so that's looking at the single deployment. You'll notice that this menu right here changes a little bit. If you're looking at a specific deployment, you've got this menu. If I click on the project name up here, I'm back to the main menu where here's the whole project, here's the list of deployments, and the settings, this tab is where you'll find all those build commands that we were talking about before. If you need to delete a project ever, it's down inside the general settings. So settings, we're inside the general section. Environment variables is another one that you'll come to quite often. So you can create environment variables, and you can say, hey, this variable is only good for, production. So in production, so we've got this, and we save it. There we go. So we have now created this variable, Bob, for production, for the production environment only. And here's the value. Yeah, I can click on it. There it is. If I want to create another one, Bob, and let's say this one is for not production, but preview or deployment, it's 456 is the value for this. There we go. So we have two versions of the variable Bob. This is an environment variable that's available in our code if you're doing some server-side Node.js code. So serverless functions. All right, so we have now two projects. One with GitHub, where we did it on GitHub Pages, and then we also connected it to Vercel so that we could draw it in. And every time we make a change to the GitHub repo, Vercel automatically knows that that change has been made, and it will grab a new copy. So it's monitoring that repository and looking for changes. When they happen, it brings in and does a new build for that code. All right, so let's move on to our third and final one. We've got this one, and I'll push this up to Vercel Vite just so it is there for you so I don't forget. So git push origin main, and there we go. We have that up. There we go. And then the final one. So this one we will add, and this one I'll show you. Every time we make a change, we push it up to GitHub, and then Vercel will pick up the changes that we've got. So here we are in our project, and I'm going to do git init, git add all. So this is just the initial state of our project. I'll explain what it is in a moment. So git remote add origin, git push origin main. Okay, so the current state of the project, what we have right here, is what we're going to see here on GitHub. Okay, now this one is an Express-based API. Very basic, very simple. I've got two functions inside of here. So I've installed the Express library. So in package.json, this is my one dependency. I've already run the install to add it. I did an npm init, which created package.json. Then I did npm install for Express to bring that into my project. So I got the node modules for that. And then we also set this up. So type equals module means that when I do imports, it's ES modules. So import Express, not the require command that you'll see in a lot of examples with Express. It's the old require command. So I'm using ES modules. So I need this syntax, which means in my package.json, I have to add this in here. The name of my main script, app.js. And in the scripts, I don't have that test one. I removed the test one that was there by default. I've got a build command, and all it's going to do is run this. So if I were to, in here, if I was to say npm run build, all it's going to do is run this echo command. There it is. If I want to see this code running, then I can say node app.js. There we go. So this page has the Express app that is listening on this port number. So 3333. And there's the URL. If I go command click, there we have it. So on localhost port 3333, this is the data coming back from my API. That's the whole thing. All it does is generate this static content every single time. So this JSON file comes back every single time. I'm just listening for the root and setting a content type header. Here's the data that I'm going to return. I convert it to a string and I send it back. That's it. And the key, I'm looking to see if there's an environment variable called key. And if there isn't, I'm using this value default key. So here we can see I don't have default key appearing here. So I am actually using something from the environment. If I do an echo $key, that's the name of this variable right here. There it is. If you want to create your own environment variables on the command line, something that's going to be temporary, it's only going to be around while your application is running, while this terminal is open. On Mac, you can just say export. Let's do Bob again, equals 123. I have now created an environment variable. So if I say echo $Bob, there it is. So in my code, I could say process env.bob, and I would get that value. And the cool thing is that this is not accessible to anybody else that's not running right here in my terminal. So my Node.js can read environment variables, but people outside of here cannot do that. So it's a very secure way to store data. Okay, so we have environment variables, and we've got ones that we're setting here. Now I was saying that it's only available right here in my terminal, but up on Vercel, I'm not going to have that. That variable is not going to exist. So I'm going to have to use the Vercel interface to create that environment variable. So I need one called key. Otherwise, I'll end up with default key. And we'll start with that. We'll let it do default key, but we want to then add it in after we've got this up on Vercel. Okay, so what else do we need to do for Vercel? Well, we are going to connect Vercel to our repo. And when it comes over, for this to work properly with Express, now this is server-side JavaScript that's running, not just plain JavaScript that's going to run in the, or vanilla JavaScript that's going to run in the browser, but it's actually running on the server side. So we need it to be able to run this. We need to make sure that all the requests coming in get redirected to this file. So what we need to do for Vercel, before we even push it up there, is we're going to create a new file called vercel.json. This is the settings file for our project. So I'm going to say in here it's version 2, and there's two things that we're going to add. One which is builds, and one that is routes. So inside the builds, we're going to put in an object, and we're going to say that the source is app.js. This is this file right here. So the source of what we're wanting Vercel to run is our app.js file. And for running the app.js file, we want it to use the Vercel/node. This is the version of JavaScript that we want to use to run this script. So that needs to be in there. If you don't want to just visit the URL and see this text showing up on the page, which it will if we don't have this setting, if we don't tell it, hey, when you're building this thing, when you're running it, you need to have Node running this code. It's not just text files that you're sending back. So this, very important. And then the other part of this is we do want to make sure that everything gets routed to this file. We don't want people to go in and say, oh yeah, okay, I'm on here /API/something else, and then get a 404 error. We want all of this to be redirected to the app.js. Now, if I was building an actual API with Express, I'd have routes and I'd be handling those different URLs, but it still has to go through this one entry point. So inside of routes, we create another object and we say, okay, the source, this is the original route. So I'm going to say, if somebody visits us, and this is like a regular expression, well, it's not like a regular expression, it is a regular expression, to say that starting at the root, followed by anything. So absolutely everything as the source needs to be sent to or rerouted to app.js. So our file. So every URL is being sent to app.js, and this page is being run by Vercel's version of Node. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm going to git add all git commit -m added vercel.json git push origin main. So we're pushing it up to, there we go. So we have all of that now up on GitHub. So in the Vercel Express, refresh, we should now, yep, there it is. There's the Vercel JSON file. So all of that is ready. So we'll go back to Vercel, and we want to add a new repository here. So it's a new project that we're adding. New project from our main dashboard from our account. And there it is, Vercel Express. We're going to import that. Keep the same name. Very likely that this has been taken, so we'll get Vercel Express something. Root directory, yep, that's where we are. Build settings, there's nothing that we really need to do there. We can set up our environment variables here though. So any environment variables we want to set up, and we did have one here, key. So let's say key, and we'll say that it is Monday is the value for that key. So I will save it. There we go. And I will deploy. Give it a second. So deployment is queued. Sometimes, depending on how busy it is, you can wait 30 seconds or whatever for it to start doing the build. I've never seen it really take that long. It's never been more than a minute. Now, as your project gets bigger, you will have more things to build. It'll take a little bit longer, but for something this size, it's only going to take a few seconds. And there it is. There is the preview of what we're getting. So because the vercel.json file was there, it was able to run this script with Node, the Vercel version of Node. And there is the key coming in from the environment variables. So let's go to the dashboard for our project and our URL. There we go, Vercel Express 8 Gamma. So yeah, that's the one that they created. And there we go with the key Monday. So this is the public URL that you can share with people. So just remember, you can always go to the settings to modify things. There's tons of settings. Cron jobs, if you want to have something that runs on a regular basis, like cron jobs, they've been around for forever. You can set it up so that at this time, every day, or on this day, once a week, I want this script to run. So you can call your own scripts, whatever they are, and have little jobs, little tasks, little maintenance tasks that run or send out messages. Lots and lots of things that you can do more, but today's focus was just on hosting and being able to actually put up websites with Vercel and GitHub. So I hope that has helped you out. Hope that is clear. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I answer as many as I have time for. And as always, thanks for watching.